enjoy.
I saw the theatrical one here at school freshman year, and I was like really let down by it.
Where did you see it? Did you just
on my
watch
Imaginary
it?
Cities class, because it was about, oh my god, Los Angeles and Blade Runner is so cool.
It's so weird that they showed the theatrical cut.
I don't know why, because all these people were like, why don't you show the final one? It's like 3 minutes longer. And he's like, I don't know, this one's cheaper. But we watched that one, and I was so let down because like you hear all these people talk about it, like it changed my life, Blade Runner, and I was like, it's kind of boring.
It's really amazing how different just watching Harrison Ford look around can be when there's no voiceover. Because when he's looking around, it's just like, well, he's got to do something while the voiceover's rolling. But when he's just looking around and there's just music playing, or like just like ambient city noise, cars going by and stuff, it's just so much more profound. Like you can just really read into it.
Also, if his voiceover wasn't like really I don't give a shit tone, because the whole time he's like, yeah, and then I went here.
It's
the replicants aren't happy with us. They keep looking in our direction, and I keep looking away. And then he's like, it's so over the top. And then it was totally, the studio was just afraid it wasn't going to resonate, so we had to over-explain everything. The whole thing about Blade Runner is the subtleties.
You know the line in it? The line in the theatrical cut? Was it in the version that you watched where he says, he's the kind of cop that you would have read about in history books saying the N-word, but he doesn't say the N-word. He actually says, like, the N-word, not the phrase the N-word.
Right. Yeah.
Jesus.
It's bad. It's really over the top, too, because that's like the whole message is right there.
It's too noir.
I'm pretty sure you haven't seen it, but the Stanley Kubrick movie, The Killing, the voiceover in that, Kubrick was super, super against, and the studio made him do it because they were afraid audiences wouldn't follow it.
I think that's what happened with this one, because it just looks better. And but the whole thing is the ending, you get the origami of the unicorn, and the vision of the unicorn, and then it cuts off, instead of him getting into the car and it's them driving off with the voiceover forever, it just cuts off there, which is great.
Right.
That's what makes it so good. And like I think he is one. He's replicant. And I think it's obvious that he is in those versions.
Yeah, I think in
his eyes glow.
Well, like, and you know that, I mean, once Rutger Hauer is involved, like in that final scene, and they're like walking around the Bradbury, like you get it, you understand that like he's doing this just to like taunt him, and that he is a replicant, and like that you get it all.
I was listening to, so there's this like movie critic named Scott Mance. Blade Runner's his favorite movie, so I was listening to like this talk he was giving on it, and his theory was like Harrison Ford is a replicant. And Gaff, you know Gaff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's in 2049 for that one scene.
Yeah.
They think Gaff's the actual Blade Runner. And he thinks that the memories that like, or the dreams that Harrison Ford's having are Gaff's dreams. They think they just copied Gaff's dreams, put them in Harrison Ford, and that's why he's such a good Blade Runner. Mm-hmm. Like Gaff used to be the best, and now he is. And and that's why he keeps seeing all that. And the whole thing with the unicorn, and like Gaff leaves the origami, and he makes origami in 2049, and he's just been abusing a replicant to hunt his own kind, which is even like more of a, like it's basically about a villain in the whole film, which is so unique too, and like that, I love that theory, and I kind of buy that theory.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like it's one of those things where you kind of really have to be in tune.
Oh yeah.
Like film production, like. And film analysis to be able to understand some of the things, like just to get the like, you know, the glowing eyes thing, like to be able to really pay that much attention, like you're gonna have to have gone through some sort of like study, you know what I mean? Like when I was in high school, I wouldn't have like picked up on that.
I didn't dislike it when I saw it. It was just like, oh wow, I can definitely see all the influence, and I respect the hell out of this, but I didn't like love it.
Well, when I saw the theatrical version, it was really underwhelmed, and then I went back and I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch the final cut because whatever, it might be better. Plus, there's a new movie coming out, and then like I liked it, but every day I started thinking about it more and more, and it just totally grew on me, just thinking about it, and that's why I think it's an amazing movie. But if you go with that theory that like it Gaff's the actual Blade Runner, he's a replicant, he's using Harrison Ford, a replicant. It becomes like really fascinating story about like a guy not knowing if he's a replicant or not, and also like the replicants are the good guys, like they're the hunted,
right?
And he's the bad guy, like he's the predator. You're basically following the predator or the Terminator.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's hunting down slaves to kill escaped slaves to kill them.
And and they're doing everything they want, and that. And if you watch the movie, like they kill one human.
Yeah.
And it's in self-defense. Mm-hmm. They're not bad.
Just like Rambo.
Right.
It's just like Rambo.
In the first one.
But it's a group, and like they're literally being hunted.
Well, no,
because by people who created them, and we're just told like, oh, you have an expiration date. That's the whole thing.
They do kill one person not in self-defense.
Right.
Who's that?
They kill Tyrell. Rutger Hauer squeezes his eyes out.
Oh right. But
that's for a whole different reason. It's because he created them to be slaves. Like that's, I'm not saying it's not warranted.
It's kind of warranted.
But it's definitely in cold blood. But it's really interesting because like the whole thing plays so heavily on just genre tropes that like part of the reason why I think the film's so challenging for so many people is that it is everything fits for Deckard to be the good guy, for Rutger Hauer to be the bad guy, but they're not. But they never really show you that because that's not. But because you're working on the base level of like, okay, the Harrison Ford with a gun is the good guy.
Exactly.
And Rutger Hauer just looks evil and has a British accent.
Genius movie. That's why it's so good. But then like the new one gets announced, and I like actually avoided all the marketing because I know that's what Jake does. But I avoided it all, and like
I avoided as much as I could.
I've not seen it.
Did you watch any of the little shorts they released? They released.
I watched
5.
them. Oh, I only watched 2 of them after.
I think it's 5. I have to double check on that. But like not Tony Scott. I think his name's Luke Scott. It's Ridley Scott's son. Directed 2 of them, and then like one of Denis like friends or cousins or something directed a few of the other ones, and like they were heavily featuring Jared Leto. So we're gonna talk about spoilers now, like for sure. I'm gonna pause it real quick. So wait, did you see any of the shorts?
I saw the one with Dave Bautista where he's
didn't see that one.
Okay. So the idea is that he's going to a marketplace to sell his like worm grubs things.
Right, because he's a farmer.
Protein farmer, and he meets big spoiler. He meets Deckard's daughter. He doesn't meet her.
That's in a short?
He runs into her. It's unspoken, but it's her with the woman that was posing as her mother.
I thought she was in a box her whole childhood though.
The dead woman, you mean?
No, the woman ended up being his daughter.
Oh, I didn't think about that. She looked like the person.
Maybe it was when she was younger.
And he gives her like a book. He gives her like Pride and Glory, and is like, read, this is my favorite book. And she's like, is it sad? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, well, I don't want to read it then. And he's like, okay, see ya. And leaves, and like that's pretty much.
Did you see the Jared Leto one?
No, I saw the anime one.
Jared Leto one. Oh, okay. Well, Jared Leto one's kind of badass, and they sort of retread it in this movie, but it takes place in 2029, or maybe it's 39. It's like 10 or 20 years beforehand, and it's him going up to like whoever the leaders of government are, and he has one of the replicants he made that are like the new breed, and then he's just like, go up here, and he like has the replicant cut himself, and then like cut out his own eye, and like hand it and basically kill himself, and like so it's like this thing he made just kills itself, and he's just like super intimidating, and I'm like, oh my god, he's gonna be like the big villain, and then he's in 2 scenes,
right?
But like I kind of thought he worked
really well,
super well,
yeah,
because it's not really about him being a villain. It's just like he's such an interesting character. He's the Steve Jobs. He's the who invented Microsoft? Bill Gates. He's the oh boy. He's like he's all those guys like put into one times 100. Like he is the most wealthiest guy, the biggest genius on the planet.
But at the same time, he's the genre trope of the evil doctor.
Right.
But he's not. He's very distant from that. But he's definitely playing that role. And I thought that his
his like cadence of his performance was really great for that. The,
really
like,
good, yeah.
The like very subtle, slow, and like raspy voice.
Blind. I kind of get it. It's a little bit like he's blind to what he's actually doing, maybe.
Right, or it's like
or this kind of adds an intimidation factor.
Yeah,
on its own.
Like it's almost like maybe it makes him more of a god figure.
It's just fascinating what he does with 2 scenes.
And also, like, I will say that the technology of like I got this thing that goes in my brain and the camera show. That's an awesome gadget. You know what I mean?
Super
like,
cool.
That's a cool, awesome sci-fi thing.
And he implements that towards the end of one of his scenes. So he's still blind. He can't just do that all the time. He has to get it set up. But the fact that he names his assistant, who's also a replicant, Love.
Yeah.
And she was terrifying. I thought she was badass.
Oh yeah, she was awesome.
She was really. I mean, she was the scariest person in the whole movie, probably. Just on like a physical level, and like we should just go through the movie. Like, so it opens with Dave Bautista farming, and then Ryan Gosling lands, and it's the ship exactly like Deckard's. I don't know how they did that, but it was exactly like the one from the 1980 film.
Yeah.
And oh man, when he lands, it's such a great opening scene, because in the first Blade Runner, it's that interview where they're determining if he's a replicant or not. But this one's a replicant determining if you're just an older model.
Right.
And then they have that pretty badass fight where like you realize he's a replicant.
Great fight. Yeah. The pushing through the wall. And there's actually a moment in that fight where like it's funny because I was projecting Harrison Ford so hard on Ryan Gosling that there's a moment where he gets pushed up against the wall, and I was almost expecting him to do that Harrison Ford face where it's like I have to do this.
Right.
You know what
He's
I
gotta
mean?
fight now.
That I gotta fight. That like classic, but he doesn't because he's not Harrison Ford.
He gets thrown through a wall.
Yeah, but instead it's just like that crazy moment of and then you have the first oh fuck moment in the movie, which is you haven't seen The Miracle.
Oh, you've never seen A Miracle.
And it's like, what? What is The Miracle?
That's the whole film, kind of.
Yeah.
What? It's so good. And then, so he gets his eye, right?
Yeah.
And he cleans it off, and he brings it back to, what's her name from House of Cards? Claire Underwood, who's playing Jenny. Robin Wright.
Yeah.
Who didn't know was in the movie, so I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
And she's human.
Mm-hmm.
And she's his boss, and that's also just cool. Like, what was another really brilliant thing? Like, the whole reason we watched the original Blade Runner in my Imaginary Cities class was because it was such a great example of how you like have an atmosphere of a city in a movie without like hammering it into your head. It's just there, and this one does that again.
Yeah,
like they didn't hammer it into your head like this is how the cops are now. This is what's changed. You just kind of see it.
Oh yeah, and I think
just kind of there.
The best example of that is just like it's very overt, but like the lighting choices that Deakins makes, where it's in the city everything is cyan, and in the outskirts everything is orange.
Orange, right?
And it's just like
sepia-ish.
It's a simple choice to make,
right?
But in terms of establishing an atmosphere, it's so important, and it's
super important,
and it's
and it got you to wish like you saw those areas years before.
Yeah.
I wish I saw that Vegas city from like 30 years when it was in its heyday, like what the parties would be like. I was totally wondering that. And same with the Vegas. But what was interesting about LA though is you have seen it 30 years prior.
Right.
So you're like, oh, this is how it's changed.
Right, yeah. And the whole...
expanded the universe.
Yeah, it's perfect. And like... Because I feel like the whole thing, one of the things that I think that the first Blade Runner makes you wonder that this film answers, and part of the reason why I think it's a great sequel is because you did wonder, like, well, what does everywhere else look like?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Is LA?
And then you get an idea of what everything else
San Diego is literally it's their trash can.
Yeah. It's a giant garbage dump.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so after that, he goes to that, what was it where he's repeating all the words?
His baseline.
His baseline to make sure he's not like broken yet? Mm-hmm. Is that basically what that is?
No, it's to make sure that he is being submissive.
That's one thing I wasn't fully understanding.
So the idea is that part of the way that Wallace has ensured that they won't rebel is through this baseline test, which I think they ask you personal questions, and the idea is that you don't answer them because you're not personal, you're not real, you're fake, so you can't answer those questions because you don't exist. So that's why you have to say interlinked and stuff like that rather than. Which, watching that scene made me want to say interlinked. I don't know.
I know. I've never heard that word, but you said that one.
Interlinked. I want to say it.
Interlinked.
Two cells in one becoming one. Interlinked.
Cells, interlinked cells.
I love that scene, but you said you feel like you've seen that scene before? Or you feel like you've seen it? I'm just curious.
Westworld. In Westworld,
that's
whenever
true.
they're like, "Are you broken?" and they just have them like say their opening line in the whole show or whatever.
Right.
Similar, and that okay. Like I don't want to like blow my one gripe with this movie early, but I felt like this movie should have been made 10 years ago because there have been so many AI, like everything in this movie is amazing, but like a lot of it, not form wise, but story wise, I had seen a version of before and I was like, oh, this would have been amazing if
they beat Ex Machina to it.
If it came out before Ex Machina and Westworld and Mr. Robot, like they're all there's so many things like that, and this one I think is probably my favorite out of all those. But like it just would have maybe would have added that like tiny bit more freshness to it. It's just like that's the one thing. But since it's Blade Runner, I'm like I can look past it, and I haven't seen Mr. Robot, and I mean I've seen Westworld and I've seen Ex Machina. And, like, that's the one thing where I was like, okay, I've seen some of this before, but this was such a unique, even with all that, it was still a really fascinating twist because even with Westworld, the main character isn't one of the bots.
No.
It's an ensemble. You don't...
Yeah.
Well, this one, like, you follow Ryan Gosling, a replicant. The main character of this movie, from the get, is a replicant. It's the complete opposite of the first film. He's wondering if he's actually human.
But...
Holy fuck.
Then... The most brilliant part of the movie is it gets you to think he's not.
Yeah.
And you want
So
him.
wait, first of all, they get the what was it, the DNA, finds out that Harrison Deckard's child or whatever with this, what's the girl's name? With Rachel. Male or female, there's two beings that had the same, what is it, DNA? Was it DNA?
Yeah, because they're twins. But the idea is twins can't have the same DNA.
Exactly. So there's one or the other. Someone falsified it, and it's a male or female. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Oh my god, that could be me because
the female's dead in the records." Right. So he's like, "Well, the male's alive, and then you have this memory."
Yeah, because Robin Wright asks, She's like, "Well, do you have a memory? Can you share?"
She's got a very condescending.
Why did she ask about that? Oh, she asked about that because she was she was drunk, and also I think she was pissed that the other ones. She wanted to know what he was programmed with. What memory did they give him? Mm-hmm. And his was like oddly detailed.
Well, because she's being very condescending towards him, like you're just a replicant, like she's almost amused,
right,
by being like, well, what are your memories?
Which is an awesome scene,
right?
And it's him living in like, what would you call that?
He's in like some sort of like
a ghetto.
It's very. It seems like the city in the pit in Dark Knight Rises.
Oh yeah, it does.
It seems like some sort of prison city, but it's an orphanage.
And the kids are following him. He has a wooden horse.
It's an orphanage in
right. It is an orphanage. It's the orphanage he goes to.
Yeah, it's the orphanage he goes to.
And he like hides the horse in one of the.
He's being chased by
destroyed
a bunch of kids,
burners.
And there's a whittled wooden horse
with a number
with a date on it, which is the same date that he sees on the trunk of the tree at Dave Bautista's house.
And we don't really know why, because he told that story first, right? Mm-hmm. And then he goes to the house and he freaks out over the number, and then he reveals, oh, it's the number under the. Well, we didn't know that. I was putting it together
because he lies to Robin Wright,
right?
Because he says he doesn't know what the number is. But he knows that that's the number on the thing in his memory, but he doesn't tell her that.
It's done so well.
The relationship between him and the Joy projection.
Oh,
what are your thoughts?
That's my favorite part of the whole film.
I agree. Well, I don't agree that it's my favorite part of the film, but I agree that it's amazing.
That's my favorite part of the film because, again, it's all I like the whole movie, but a lot of the other parts I'd kind of seen before, and I'm not saying like you can't do the same thing over again. It's just like. What was fresh, right? Like Blade Runner is so amazing because it's so original.
Yeah.
that joy element. Right when they introduced it, I was like, this is, come on. And total reversal. Like, I was so enthralled with everything in that. The whole concept of her, like, though that's the relationship, because he's a replicant. Like, this is who he would actually be attracted to. And, like, and that's just like a third sublet. Like, this is an entertainment for a replicant. And, or not an entertainment, this is just like some being they made. And it got me thinking of Her, the movie Her.
Right, because that's what it almost plays on expectation. I think it does a really interesting thing, which I think is important in genre films like this, where it almost makes you think that it's going to be something that you've seen before.
Right.
It makes you think it's going to be her, because he's just talking to her, she's off screen. And you're like, are they doing her?
You see her.
This better not be her. And then you see her and you're like, shit, this isn't her.
Yeah, that's been broken. That's the chair railing. I was trying to take it off, but I couldn't get the other screw out. But yeah, like, you see her, and because then of course the technology would get there.
Right.
Of course it would.
And the decision
Genius.
to portray a hologram as completely unseen, you can't see through it at all until a light passes behind it, is genius.
Right.
That effect alone
Such an amazing effect.
is such like a feat of filmmaking. The idea, 'cause,
Right.
like, it's not as if the technology needed for that is any more than the technology you would need for any shot with a hologram. It's the
Right.
same thing.
Well,
You
also
just
it's
need
like-
motion control dollies, but like
when she brings the girl in, because there's a scene in the movie Her where that like happens, and she's like the
Right.
voice, and like it's weird, but she like masks herself over her.
Yeah.
That was such an amazing thing to watch. Like,
Yeah.
like her just go over her face, and like it's not all.
yeah, and it's
Oh my
like and the
God.
hands are like interlinked.
Interlinked, yeah. God, that was one of the most like fascinating things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
It was amazing.
And then
Yeah.
when she dies.
Right. Oh, and the line. See, it just has so many great sci-fi moments, and like they do a really good job of like wrapping up themes in lines,
Right.
which I think the first Blade Runner doesn't do always, but like the Tears in Rain is a really good example of that. Like it's like, oh well, that's what that scene's about. Where this is like, he's like, well then you'll die if this gets broken, and she's like, yeah, like a real girl.
Well, that's how you get to care about him too, because since he's replicant, immediately you don't care about him as much.
Right.
Other than like he's Ryan Gosling, but still he's still acting he's a little bit more robotic than like your typical replicant would be, maybe, or ones with planted in memories. But since we learned why, he acts sort of more outlandish than other ones. But even with all that said, like, you're thinking the other replicants don't act like Ryan Gosling because when you meet the girl, you're like, oh, she makes the memories. When actually, no, that's a complete lie. She doesn't do any of that. They made her think she is, but no, they're all like given just memories. Like they're basically humans. If you have memories and then you can do something like he does with joy, that's a form of humanity, and that's, I think, his miracle.
Right. Yeah.
I think he realizes that in the end.
Yeah.
When she leaves and he feels something.
And I think that the most important theme in terms of artificial intelligence here is that free will is actually what makes you alive, and that the older generation replicants were actually more alive than these ones because of the fact that they will just do whatever you say.
And that's what Wallace thought.
Right. Yeah, and Wallace was like, oh, that makes them better, and like that's what he's trying to do, but like the idea is that they are actually the same as humans because they have free will and because they and I love that because like I have to say that one of the things that I thought when I watched the first Blade Runner was like very funny and made me kind of like really interested in like the lore and like the genre is just that every AI movie ever, the idea is, well, you can love it.
Oh, right.
So it's real. So it's a human, or so
because
it's,
you love.
It's real because you can love it. It's real, and I think that Ex Machina does that. Her does that. The original Blade Runner does that.
Yeah, true.
Westworld, there's a little bit of that, but it's
But this is like if you
but
have free will.
It's different. It's a different. This is what makes them human, and also like the ability to reproduce, which is
It's a lot more complicated. It's a lot more
complicated than just like, well, I'm in love with Rachel, so she must be real. You know what I mean? Or like, or
but
it doesn't matter.
I would argue for some of those examples that free will actually technically comes into play for a few of them. But
right.
But like this one addresses that as like the four. It's the first thing it addresses.
Yeah.
But like I love everything with Joy and
I love all those movies.
And
like,
the fact and the fact that like the girl that they used to like sleep with them backstabs him.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! And then first he has to go track down this kid.
She technically, you think she's backstabbing him, but she's not really.
She's actually with the group.
Yeah.
But so he has to track down this kid. He goes to the orphanage, finds out, oh my god, this is the orphanage from my memories, and finds the horse. Like he finds the horse in that bag.
Yeah, and
that's the first oh shit moment.
What a choice. The way that they shoot that with just that like medium-ish shot on the furnace, and it's just such a long shot where you're just watching his hands get closer as he's making the decision, like the Schrodinger's cat, like do I look inside? If I look inside, I'll never know whether I'm a human or not.
And at that point, there's three options going in your head because you're like, one, those are his actual memories. Two, those are someone else's memories. Or three, those are just the memories that this random girl generated for you, but somehow it's true, and since it is true, and she said someone experienced this, he might actually be a human. Or he might be one of these older version replicants that were given actual human memories.
Yeah.
So there's like all these options where you're like, what? And you're just kind of like narrowing it down for the rest of the movie.
But the thing is although, at least in my experience, although I knew, just because the way she said this was experienced.
Did you know?
So no. So you, okay. I think unconsciously you understand that there's the option that it's not him.
Right.
That was just given to him. That wasn't his actual memory. But the seduction of you wanting him to be a human.
Right.
When he's trying to open that is so strong. That the only outcome you want, which I think this is a miracle of filmmaking,
right,
is that like you want him to pull that horse out so bad to prove that he's a human, so that so that he can like feel alive and like important and like.
Well, hold on. I think, and this might just be a phrasing. I never ever thought he was full-fledged human.
So
did you? Because I thought it was the whole dilemma was like Deckard, who might be a human in this universe, as far as Ryan Gosling's character knows, he's human, was with a replicant, and they had an offspring, and he's like, oh, I could potentially have been that offspring.
Yes.
And the fact that he was born instead of created.
Right.
He's not human, because he'd still be like half and half.
Right.
But the fact that he would be born makes him like
born in half, and that like. The fact that he would
want him to be born
would mean that he is different
rather than designed,
and that the memory was real.
Yeah,
because the idea, I guess, that makes him when I say the fact that he's human,
right? Because that is considered human if you're born.
Is that his memories are real,
right?
Because the thing that really sets the replicants apart from the humans is that the replicants have all these fake memories, and it's just like the moment where Robin Wright asks him about his Robin Wright asks him about this memory, and he's like, well, it doesn't matter because it's not real.
Right.
And that's so sad to be like, I have this memory from my childhood, but it doesn't matter because it's not real.
Right.
Like, that's so sad. And, like, the idea that could be... Like, the idea that could be not true and that's what you've been telling yourself your whole life is, like... I feel like that's the equivalent of, like, in the real world if someone was like, hey, actually, people don't die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you thought you were going to die, but guess what? You're not.
People don't die.
Like, you're going to live forever.
It's the biggest reveal for his existence.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh my god, like, the saddest thing about me existing is no longer true. But like, it's...
And again, like, in the back of your mind, you're still like, but wait a minute. Even if he was possibly born, and that's like he would have more than one memory, but like you don't think about it at the time.
Right.
You don't. You're like, this is the memory.
Right.
Because he's a replicant. Whatever.
Yeah. And
it might have got wiped. Whatever. And like it carries you on that little neat. Like it's such a thin line, and it constantly is cutting back from him to that girl that is oh my god, Love, and she's super badass and tours him around the building, and they have that amazing first scene with
Jared Leto. Yeah.
The first scene where it's just like that shot of a replicant he just made in the plastic, and then just gets dropped on the floor, and he just kills a thing he created. That's like that's a storyline that's briefly in a Rick and Morty episode where like he creates something and then he gets drunk, passes out, and destroys it.
Oh yeah.
That's so fucking deep.
Yeah.
And also terrifying because then he just tells his assistant Love, like, all right, like now let's find the missing link. Let's now like add like she's defected.
And I like it because it's like that. It's a good like show not tell moment of like, how do you know that he wants them to be able to give birth now?
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's because they say very specifically this is the newest model, and he walks right up to the newest model and destroys it instantly without even a thought. So it's like, oh, he doesn't care about that. He really doesn't care about that.
He really doesn't. He just touches her stomach, her womb.
Yeah.
Oh man, so badass. So you go from that, and then I think the next scene, after he goes to the orphanage, gets shut down and all that, which was crazy, finds that out about himself, and then he comes back, and then he does his test, and he almost fails.
Yeah.
But he found the kid, because he did find the kid. It's him, maybe, but he thinks it's him. And he gets off the hook for it.
Which I will say, like, Robin Wright would have asked for the eyeball.
I think you're right.
But I don't care.
But at the same time, like, they did have an awesome scene before that where he's like, I never killed something that was born before.
Right.
So I kind of would have bought her, like, oh, that must have been a hard thing for him to do. Mm-hmm. He probably didn't take the eyeball. He probably just killed it. And maybe, like, the eyeball for one that was born doesn't even matter. So I kind of actually, that didn't bother me, but I think...
it didn't bother me, but I was like, okay. Like, I suspended my disbelief, but I was like, kind of feel like she would have. But
I wasn't even thinking about the eyeball. I was more thinking like maybe she would have asked for like a photo or something.
She would have asked for something
more. But at the same time, she didn't want any trace because it would have ended the world, as she said many times.
Right.
But then the next scene, Love kills her when she breaks the glass in her hand.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
And the choice to cut to outside of a window is great. That's an excellent.
Right. When she dies.
Yeah.
Oh, and then she's on her computer. Yeah. So then, I think that's when Ryan Gosling has to run out. I think he still loses his job, even though she's like.
Right, because she's like, I'll give you. It's like the classic, like, I'll give you a head start because you did this one for me, but they're gonna be tracking you from now on.
He has his last moment with Joy at his apartment.
Right.
Which is when he has sex, right? With the girl.
Yes.
And then oh my god, the next morning, she's like, you gotta take me out you have to destroy me from the server, or just put me on this flash drive, because like, if you destroy me at home, that way they can't track you. Yeah. Which I was almost wondering, like, why can't, if Jared really wanted to find him, or Love really wanted to find him, can't they just go through their own technology? But like, I sort of believe if he had all this power, that maybe he would have like had some kind of free will in there for people who buy his product.
Well, and I think that they address it with like the whole blackout thing, that I don't think that there's any cloud-based technology anymore.
It's single user.
So so I think that like that, like Emanator or whatever, the Emanator, all of the data exists solely on the Emanator. That's why if it's broken, and I don't think it goes up to an internet service.
Which is fascinating.
I think it runs all on its own.
And then he goes to see Harrison Ford, right?
Yeah.
How does he find out about where he might be? I forget. Was that in one of the files? Oh no, it's not Harrison Ford. He finds out this was the last sighting. Oh, what was it?
It was nuclear. There was like a lot of nuclear radiation there.
But there was a reason he had to go to something with that radiation. There's a reason he had to go to that location. There was something at the location. I'm kind of forgetting why. But he had to go there. I'm really forgetting why.
So am I.
And he he walks up there, and I love that little thing he had that like kind of was a scout.
Yeah,
That was pretty cool. And oh my god, and plus this is like an hour and a half into the movie at this point.
Yeah, like,
no Harrison Ford.
Like a lot of movies would have been over by now.
Right. Hour and a half, no Harrison Ford. I'm kind of like, he was on the poster. Where the fuck is he?
Yeah.
First of all, their meeting was great, and he fell over the theater. But when they're in that theater and Elvis is playing,
what?
Holy shit!
What a perfect scene.
How'd they shoot that? The lighting is nuts.
It's nuts.
The gunshot lighting, like every aspect of that was, it's so like intense, but at the same time you're like wondering what each person's doing. You can't see it really well, but what you are seeing is beautiful. The music's popping up at random spots. It's just an amazing scene.
By the way, did you see the BTS photo where Harrison Ford accidentally actually
hit him,
Ryan Gosling?
I did see that.
That was a lot of fun.
Which was one of those punches, right?
Yeah.
Because he's just, oh man, such a good scene. And then he's just like, want to get a drink? And he says, yeah. Oh my god, it's just an incredible scene. Oh, he does take his gun. Oh, it's so
and the little Frank Sinatra, the jukebox that is like the little dome.
And that's his favorite guy too.
Yeah.
The dog. I kind of didn't understand what the whole point of the dog was. Maybe there's something there I didn't get. However, one of the best lines is he a replicant? I don't know. You ask him.
Why don't you ask him?
Why don't you ask him? Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Very Harrison Ford.
Very Harrison Ford.
Very, very, very Deckard.
That is very Deckard. And then
it's a line in I think his first line in the original is he says that really stereotypical accent that the guy does, and he says you're the Blade Runner,
right?
And he's like, no, I'm eating.
Oh, you know what? we did skip over a key scene where he visits Gaff.
Right.
That's a key.
Right.
Oh, that's probably how he found out where he might be.
Yeah.
I think that's how he found that out. Well, because that scene is actually like super essential, I think, because he's doing the origami, and if you pay attention to how he answers the questions, you're like, he's kind of lying.
Yeah.
Because he says like, oh yeah, we used to work back in the day. Like he doesn't outright say, oh yeah, you might have been a replicant or not. They don't confirm it. I don't think they confirm it in this movie.
And the thing is like, they didn't really work together in the first Blade Runner.
He's just there.
Like,
he's the only other Blade Runner
around.
Right. He's retired. He's in an old home now.
Yeah, and like even in the first one, like it's not like he's going on missions with Deckard. Like they're not Blade Runners together.
Right.
It's like he's just around and telling him to do things.
I think he used them, man. I think he used them, which is so fascinating.
That's really fascinating.
But yeah, I love how we got a scene of him. So anyway, he's with Harrison Ford, and he reveals like, oh, he had a daughter, and then he didn't want to have anything.
Well, he doesn't know that it's a daughter yet.
Oh, he had a kid.
He had a kid, and in the audience's eyes, you're like, Ryan Gosling's his kid.
Fuck. Right.
Yeah, and you're like, he's talking to his dad, and like he's like Jesus essentially. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's like this like figure of like he's born from God to like save us all. And you're like, oh my god, like he's talking to him and like he doesn't even know.
Oh, and plus the whole thing with he's just explaining how it all happened, and like they kept whoever it was in hiding, and now and he didn't want to know anything about what happened to the kid.
Yeah.
So that they could not track him down and like interrogate him, and he wouldn't be able to answer.
We were being hunted.
But like, and that you see in the trailer. You're like, oh, he's a replicant.
Yeah.
But no, it's like, him and his family were being hunted. It's still kind of up in the air. So do you think he is?
So I think that he
in this movie, do you think they consider him to be?
I think that they do consider him to be.
Do you think it's more interesting... Sorry, continue. Let me cut you off.
Well, no, you can ask your question.
Okay, do you think it's more interesting of a storyline for a human to have been with a replicant and had a child, or a replicant been with a replicant and had a child? Because that's basically the two options.
So this is what I'm not interested in. I'm not interested in Deckard's a human, she's a replicant, and their love allowed them to have a baby. I don't like that because that seems like a storybook type of ending. and I don't think that that's what Blade Runner is.
I don't think it is either.
I think that Tyrell, like Wallace says, Tyrell created the ability for them to reproduce in Rachel, and I think that that's why he kept Rachel, because Rachel was the newest model that Tyrell ever created.
That's why Harrison Ford might have been a unique model as well.
Right. And, you know, like the whole reason why Tyrell calls Deckard in to do that test on Rachel was just to have them meet.
Right.
And the idea is that
just to have them meet.
Just to have them meet.
And that's why it's a little slow and you're like, what is this?
I love that scene.
It's such a good scene.
It's such a good scene. And that's another scene, like when I watched it, I was like, I feel like I've seen this, but it's like it's kind of an interrogation scene, but it's like kind of like a love scene, but like it's like really interesting, and
love scene's a little pushy.
It's kind of like it's kind of like that, like
right,
meet cute kind of like one person's being like
a little aggressive
kind of thing,
but like it's almost like, hey, if we're into this, like
I
kind of get it.
It's a very, like, you know, 80s action movies. Like, the female characters are written flatly and the male characters...
But she's a replicant.
Oh, yeah. Well, she's a replicant. But it's, like, it's also kind of playing on that trope, you know what I mean?
I think so, but also, like, if he's a replicant too... I kind of bought it. But I could see how someone might not. I thought it was a good scene.
Well, no, I think it's a great scene.
It's intentionally kind of pushy, though.
Yeah, no, it is.
He doesn't know what he... like once.
Right.
It's more than like a basic human having sex with a replicant. It's like, no, this guy, if he is a human, like there's something there, but it also, like, he might not be. Right. And that might also be why there's something there.
Well, and that's the moment where he has the realization that he might be a replicant, I think.
Right.
Is because he says, does she know? And I don't think that he ever considered in his head that replicants don't know that they are replicants, because I guess...
For that movie, yeah.
For that movie, because all the other ones...
They're totally aware in this movie, which is so different.
Well, and they're aware in the first movie because they're slaves, and I think that they understand that they're slaves, but they're not purposely submissive.
Right.
They have free will in the first one, but she is the first one that he's like, maybe she doesn't know, and obviously he like...
So I think what we're kind of getting at though is it matters, but it also that the story would work, I think, either way, if he is or not. I prefer him being a replicant.
I do too.
But the moment you like solidify that, it takes all the mystery away.
Yeah, because I also like the idea that Tyrell was like a really like that he had this like brilliant master plan, and that Deckard and Rachel were from the same generation. Right. And that they were the first two that were destined to fall in love and create a child.
Which is interesting.
But and I'd actually really want to rewatch the original now just to kind of feel like were there more hints.
But there's the whole thing like Tyrell he aged, does. But maybe in this new version they age better.
Right. Well, like who knows? Well, they do age because there's Dave Bautista in his photo is young.
Yeah.
No, but he's old in the currently.
That version ages.
Yeah,
so if Harrison Ford is that version,
Nexus 8 ages.
But they put the tracker.
But actually, so you can argue that all Tyrimson models, all of
post
the Tyrimson
Blade Runner, post Rachel and beyond age.
Right, well, because even before Rachel. Wait, hold on.
No,
how the hell?
It was supposed to be 4 years. You're out of
right. How did?
But that might have been an excuse. That might not even been a real thing.
Right, because how did Bautista survive? Because Nexus 8 is what Rutger Hauer was.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I think they kind of answered that. That was just an excuse to eliminate. I think it's after 4 years they gain a full conscience. Like they start thinking outside the box.
Right. They gain like legit emotions. They have enough memories to like
of their own that aren't implanted.
To like start to be more of a human than the humans actually are.
But so at this point with Ryan Gosling, they have the tracker. They come. They don't kill Ryan Gosling there. which was a little odd. I remember they like knocked him out, and well, maybe that's a whole thing like a replicant killing a replicant. That's just like not cool. So okay, but they take Harrison Ford.
Well, you think that he dies.
Yeah, that they kill Harrison Ford.
Well, you think that the Ryan Gosling's dead because he gets the shard of
metal
from the car, the shrapnel, like deep in him. But they've kind of established by this point in the film that they established it in the first one that replicants are incredibly hard to kill.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh no, yeah.
At the moment where Roy Batty pushes the knife or the nail through his hand, like you know what I mean? Like it's not.
Well, plus he gets shot in the beginning and then he heal him up. So I don't even think they intended to kill him. I think it's a replicant thing.
Yeah.
Because like she will kill humans. Mm-hmm. But you don't really see her take out a replicant. Mm-mm. I don't think you ever do. But yeah, they get Harrison Ford, and like another reason why it's genius not to reveal if he is one or not. The whole time you're like, oh, he's very much in jeopardy. Like he could die any second because he could very well be human, whatever. So that's still like why that's incredible. But they take him back, and Ryan Gosling has to like follow him.
Yeah,
he gets to his ship, and again like a beautiful outside area. Does he bring? I don't think he brings the dog. I think the dog. I don't know what happens to the dog. The dog kind of gets left.
I think that they're like
dog's dead.
They didn't want to kill the dog. They didn't want to do the kill the dog scene.
But it's starving there now, probably.
But it's gonna die.
There's a Luke Scott short film coming. That's the dog dying in Las Vegas. Oh no!
And it releases the dove.
The next movie, it's a dog cut out the wood. But yeah, no. So he follows him, and one of the most amazing scenes I've ever seen in a movie was the reuniting with Rachel.
Yes.
I literally I was shitting myself.
Yeah,
that was incredible.
No.
Well, because the whole thing with the first Jared Leto comes out and says that epic monologue about how like everything you thought about Rachel might have been planned, and like and you're like what?
Yeah,
and like Tyrell had it all figured out. Like you think it was happenstance that you just like met that day, and he's like what the fuck? And then he's like I can just bring her back, and she comes out, and like look, Rogue One, Tarkin he looked 99% there. Leia's like 90% there. That was Rachel, man.
It was Rachel.
That was Rachel.
I cried in that scene in a way that I hadn't ever cried in a movie before.
Really?
Where I just felt like
it's nostalgic, but at the same time, like holy shit, they're on screen together again.
Yeah.
And it's like an incredible moment.
I felt like it was the first time since I was a little kid that I was like, I don't believe what I'm seeing on screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also just like the emotion of the moment, like
so good.
I was just like I cried at a later time in that movie when you find out Ryan Gosling is not not born.
That moment's like the first one, those two are back on screen. And like what was even more impressive was it looked so much like her. Because it like was her. Mm-hmm. And if there was something off, like the amount of time she's on screen, you're like, I can't tell. And then he fucking says it.
Yeah.
Her eyes were green.
And then
shit.
Bang, blast her to the head.
Oh.
Fake Rachel.
I'm like, her eyes were green.
Yeah.
That was a thing. I was losing my mind. That was such an amazing scene.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know how. Oh my god, that was so good. I think if like you haven't seen the first one, that scene's not gonna matter at all to you.
No.
Do you
think that you could have seen this movie without having seen the first one?
And I don't think you would have enjoyed it.
I think you would have been thoroughly confused. But
super confused, and half of it wouldn't have meant as much to you.
Right.
Because like that scene meant the world to us.
Right.
Like that was fucking amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was so impressed at the fact that it looked good and everything, but also the stakes that like they were about to shatter his world. Right. They were about to shatter Deckard's world, and then he realizes, like he's staring at her, and he has incredible acting by Harrison Ford, where he just says her eyes were green, which is like, because that's the whole thing in the first film, and he just takes her out. Oh my god! And then Jared Leto just sentences him to death basically, or to go back to
You're gonna take him to the off-world colonies,
Right.
To be tortured by whatever.
To find out where the kid is.
To be tortured by whatever they have on the off-world colonies, because he says like the off-world colonies will get you to speak.
Anything else about that scene?
Well,
It's such a good scene.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I just feel like thematically, like that scene is like.
It's incredible.
It's so important because it's like. This is the thing about. I think one of the big questions about artificial intelligence is like, well, you could just create a new artificial intelligence and it'll be the same thing. You know what I mean? Like
Joy. Yeah, Joy needs this.
Like
yeah, well, that's what Joy is.
Right. Yeah, and the idea is that it's like, is it real if you can just create a perfect replica? You know what I mean? Like if you have Rachel's memories, if you have everything, you can just make a new one and she'll be the same thing and it won't matter to you. But the idea that it does matter to him, although the line "her eyes are green" or green is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Like you couldn't have done anything better. Like. That's almost not necessary because I think that the point is that she looks exactly like her. She has all the same memories, but it doesn't matter because he loved the soul.
That's what's so incredible about that is because I didn't even notice the eyes. I didn't notice it until but I think that's the point. Is like,
and it's perfect because
he noticed.
Like, yeah, it's like Harrison Ford doesn't love anyone. You know what I mean? Like none of Harrison Ford's characters like genuinely are ever.
I'd argue.
But it's such an egotistical love when he actually is in love. You know what I mean? It's a very like, and I mean we don't need to rehash.
Okay, but basically that I understand what you're saying. But the thing is, like,
you know what I mean?
The way they showed that he likes what's inside her was the eyes,
right?
Because that is something.
The eyes are the whole thing in Blade Runner.
That's something that only like I know people might have like eyes that stand out, but I think when like you're in a relationship with someone, you like know their eyes better than anyone.
Yeah.
And he like. That's why that line's incredible. And then right after that, one of the most intense scenes I've ever seen in a film, which was that whole like thing with the ships.
Yeah.
And the water.
What a great tension builder! Just choosing to have it be in the water where the ship's sinking and like, because
my heart was racing.
Right. Because
I was on the edge of my seat.
You could have staged that fight anywhere. You know what I mean? But choosing to stage that
and also, like,
in the ocean.
Another thing about the city. It's on the edge, and there's a wall because the oceans are
sea level rise.
Flooding, right?
Yeah.
And that's not even mentioned or explained. I just like figured that out because it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my god, like that ship is sinking. He's drowning. He's hooked in, and he can't break out. Mm-hmm. Another reason why he might not. I mean, maybe it's just because he's an older replicant, but like maybe he might not be a replicant. But still, replicants drown, and that fight scene between Gosling and her. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I don't even think you see much. But just like the sounds.
Yeah, it's the sound design is really good with the because like that sound of getting of like the stab.
Yeah.
Such a
the stab and then the drown. You see her water, which and her whole thing was she was underwater in the fucking room with the cinematography. This movie's so good.
Yeah. It's so good. I didn't like the line "I'm the best one" that she says when she thinks she kills him. I was like, well, yeah, you get that.
Well, Jared Leto calls her the best one.
Right.
In his like first scene or whatever.
Yeah.
But I know what you're talking about.
But it's like...
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean?
Kind of a...
You don't need to say... Your character doesn't need to say their goal.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, Ryan Gosling never had to say, like he didn't need to say as he was dying on the steps, like, I am human now. You know what I mean? Like, you get it. That's what the whole arc was.
Well, okay, we'll get to something.
I mean?
I agree. I totally agree with you. But we're gonna get to something different where I kind of that happened to me. But that scene's incredible. He frees Harrison Ford. They get out, and I was like, oh my god, that was like the action scene.
Right.
And it was insane. And then he brings him to her place, his daughter's place, and this is probably my least favorite part of the film. And so minor, but I just wasn't thrilled with we totally skipped over the rebellion, like finding him and being like, we have a rebellion coming, but whatever.
Right, but that also is really important.
That's really
it's
important.
like you're not you're not born. Like it's
he finds that out,
and
he's
she's the one that creates.
Yet
memories.
he still goes to save Harrison. He's supposed to go kill him.
Right, he is supposed to go kill him.
But he's like, I'm gonna have you see your daughter, and that's how you're gonna be part of the rebellion too.
And you have that great scene where he talks to the Joy advertisement.
Right.
And she calls him Joe. And he's like, fuck, I'm such an idiot.
Right. But so the whole thing, like, when he's talking to Rebellion, they show flashbacks. They show, like, a little quick compilation of, like, his conversation with the girl in the box, and then, like, the stuff he heard from Robin Wright, and, like, all this stuff that, like, no, like, I get it. Like, I didn't need to see it again.
Right,
like, you know when a movie just shows it all?
Mm-hmm.
When, like, I was just figuring it out, and then they, like, show all the lines and dialogue, and, like, oh, there's a little piece of me or my thoughts in everyone. And you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
And they do it, like, that's actually a really interesting thing.
It is interesting. Just
like,
when they put it all together.
I mean, that's like it's a genre structure, you know what I mean? It's a mystery structure. It's like how do you show, when you get to a reveal, how do you show that there were hints? You know what I mean? Because you never want to do the unfounded mystery, because that's just confusion. I mean, it's like a lot of people attribute that to Shyamalan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The idea of like, well, okay, the village has been in the present day this entire time. You didn't hint to that.
But when you're going back to clips that were in the film already,
right?
Do you think
that's
okay?
So then there's a balance. I mean,
that's how you do it.
It's all about how you do it. It's about what do you need, because like I think there's a compulsion to be like, listen, I worked hard. I put all these fucking hints in.
I want to make sure
my
people get it. Right.
You know what I mean? Because you can't always be like, these are going to be great for a second viewing. You know what I mean? Like, you can't always be like, listen, you're going to get all those hints the second time you watch it. Because you can't assume that people are going to watch it a second time. You can't be like...
That's true.
Because if the film's bad, which obviously it wasn't,
right.
But if the film's bad, you know, Denis Villeneuve can't be like, but watch it again, you'll get all my hints.
Right.
You know what I mean? People are going to be like, no, I'm not going to watch it again, I don't like it.
Well, one thing I kind of would compare that I like that element, that formal element, how he did that.
Mm-hmm.
In the movie Inception... Now, this is not to the overall story, but to the minor story just between, like, Leonardo DiCaprio and Maul. When, like, Maul's, like, dying in, like, the fourth dream at the end, and she's like, you said we were old together. And he's like, but we did. And they show clips that aren't the ones that they showed in the beginning of the movie. Mm-hmm. They're slightly different. It's, like, them being old. And I'm like, that's interesting because... We didn't see those earlier in the movie.
Well, and that's a different reveal. That's a reveal of non-hints, but of...
There's sort of hints, but it's like, they were older.
It's hinting to other things that happen.
Right.
It's actually a really great way to do that.
I love that. I thought that was a beautiful way to do that type of...
Right.
Of reveal. And I thought
that's also interesting because normally these reveals are contingent upon you knowing all the same facts as the detective.
Right.
Whoever the detective is in whatever story... but like Leo knows more than you in Inception.
Exactly.
And that's
between their
reason why they're able to do that. Because you are, you know what I mean? Like,
because Ryan Gosling, we almost know more than he does.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like,
interesting.
So you have to, you can't see more stuff because it's not like Ryan Gosling was like, yes.
Oh, that's a terrific point.
Know, this is what happened before the movie. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it cuts to him like learning these things, which again.
Oh man. So do you think do you think there's a different memory of hers in all these replicants?
I guess.
Because that's her memory, right? That's her horse.
So I think, that's her horse. It's very clearly that's the thing, I guess. And I think the thing is that she seems to...
In the old ones.
Okay, it's definitely...
the old ones.
Yeah. So also...
Oh, fuck.
So here's the thing. That's definitely her in that short. So she hasn't lived her whole life inside of there, I don't think. Because there's a moment in the short where he gives her the book and she's like, I don't like sad stories. I know that must be her because she says to Ryan Gosling, I don't like sad memories. The world's already sad enough. You got to give people something happy so that they can have some happiness in their life. So I think that is definitely showing that they're supposed to be.
But the rebellion said they tricked her into thinking
right.
oh, she's sick.
Mm-hmm.
but she has this power that she doesn't have.
Yeah, it's the classic everything, everything trope of like, you're sick, stay in there.
Everything gets flipped on its head, and it's such a long movie, but like, I was so enthralled in it, oh my god. But so, and you think Gosling died?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put alpha gel on him, and he's gonna come back in the second one with an eye patch.
Yeah. Are you happy where it ended? Because I'm kind of happy where it ended.
Yeah, they did the Monsters Inc., which I really like, but it's the Monsters Inc.
We did get a kitty.
Uh-huh.
From Harrison.
Yeah.
We did do the Monsters Inc. You're totally right, it was the Monsters Inc.
But I love it. And I wasn't like, that's the Monsters Inc. I was later on, I was thinking about it. And I was
and
like,
you see Boo.
That was the Monsters Inc.
Yeah, you do see her. Oh my god, that is the Monsters Inc. But you do see her. That's like, it's such a... I honestly think Harrison Ford could get a supporting actor in this. Like, has he ever won? I think he's been nominated for like The Fugitive, but he brought it for Han Solo and Force Awakens. Like, I thought he brought it. He's given a considerable amount in that, and I think he's like having fun. I really liked him in that, but like this, you could just tell like he was going all out. Like he really was. He wasn't messing around at all in this movie. Like it was.
He was Rick Deckard.
He was Rick Deckard,
and you could tell that. You could tell that he wasn't phoning it in.
I really want him to do this more.
Yeah.
Just this caliber at his age, because he's still like, he's an amazing actor still.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great roles that he could play, like just things that we've really never gotten to see him as. I mean, like,
just the projects, because when you do Cowboys and Aliens, he's having fun. Same he did one with Gary Oldman that was like a stock market one. I don't know.
But you want to give him the chance to. He did 42.
Oh, right. Well, 42 is actually pretty good.
No, he is pretty good.
But
you want to give him an opportunity to feel comfortable being pretentious.
Right.
And I think that's why he loves Blade Runner so much, is because, I mean, he's an actor. Like, I think he wants to do art.
It's a great way to put it. Comfortable,
you know what I mean?
Okay.
And, like, I think the whole thing about Blade Runner is that, like, it's an incredibly pretentious film, but it doesn't come across that way because it's rooted in genre. It's rooted in deep sci-fi.
Yeah.
And like, so although it's all about like what it means to be human, it doesn't feel like you're watching like a Jim Jarmusch movie because you're like
right.
oh, like flying cars. You know what I mean? And I think that
noir as well.
And noir, and I think that gives him the confidence to be like, I can be really serious about this, but I don't have to feel like I'm doing a stupid movie, because I think he kind of has that like.
Right.
That mentality of like freaking like art house, like kind of dumb, but like.
And I think he has that about action too. Like he got sick in Return of the Jedi. He kill me off, but then I think he was like, okay, there's a way to do that correctly in Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wish he did more stuff like this because he's so brilliant in this movie, and that face he makes, like in Monsters Inc. You made that joke like. Yeah, animators doing what Sully's face is, so yeah, I'm gonna like cry because they could do like the best face ever.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
they can workshop the face. They can be like a little bit more smile, a little bit less smile.
Right.
But they've got the takes on the day, and that's it. Like it's not like they can be like, can we make the corners of his mouth go up a little bit more?
Exactly, make his hairs like flutter a little.
Uh-huh.
But Harrison's so good. Oh my god! Like everything you need is in that look.
Uh-huh.
I don't need to hear the dialogue. I don't need to hear the high.
You don't want to.
You don't want to.
It'd be bad.
And it's already 2 hours 45 minutes.
But the interesting thing that I thought about that movie was, I think there's this thing, I don't know if you feel this way, but I think when a movie goes over 2 hours, there's a point where, if it's a good movie, you're like, I don't want this movie to ever end. Like, I think it gets to a certain length.
You want to keep it.
Where it's gotten past 3 acts, so you're like, I just want it to keep going. Like, you're like, you start to get afraid at like every scene, like, is this gonna be the last scene?
Right.
You know that feeling, and you're just like, I just kind of want it to keep going, but they ended it at the perfect time, at the time where it was like...
Maybe the second you're like, no! Oh, that was the right way to do it.
Yeah, and then you're like, I want more, because the world is so rich.
And so expanded.
Yeah.
Because I didn't necessarily want more at the end of the first Blade Runner. I was like, huh. Then you think about it, oh, that's a smart movie.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, you're like... oh my god, this universe is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, the thing that you wonder is, like, Are there other cities still?
I mean, and like this movie's so different from any other film I've seen. Like, the villain is not a villain really. He's just a really fascinating character.
Mm-hmm.
That like his goals are totally different, and then like you just get so many different types of perspectives, and like we didn't really need Jared Leto that much because he's human. We're human. And like these replicants are technically human, but we're like kind of seeing it from their perspective.
Right.
It's all about perspective, and it's so fascinating to watch it like that. Like, I can't believe he pulled it off. And it was this good.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I was like hoping it'd be close, but like in ways it far exceeds the original.
I agree, and I didn't want to say that.
Probably the majority.
I didn't want to be like the person who's like.
I think all the filmmaking, it far exceeds it. Like it's a better made movie. I think it's better acted. I mean the visual effects, but that comes with years. And I think like the way it's edited is better. But
I think there's a texture that you don't get in this one that you get in the
original. The story is so original,
right?
And all the elements,
and everything.
That's
about
why it's a
it.
classic.
And like it's got that. I mean, it's got that early 80s feel of, they were shooting on those lenses that were just dirty. Like, they didn't have everything perfect. Like,
right.
The camera technology wasn't perfect. So everything, like, it felt like you could grab it. Like, I don't know, like, that feeling of, like, the way that, like...
Yeah.
The way that smoke looks on screen just feels so, like, textured.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you quite get that in, like, present day, especially like Deakins shoots like on spherical lenses, not anamorphic, so like everything looks a little bit different.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wait, what's... Okay. Gotcha.
It's just like, I'm pretty sure the cameras that they were using were just recording internally on... Do you know if they shot a digital or film? I think it's
I'm
digital.
assuming it's digital, dude, because
like
when you have that many... I think it's digital. It had to be digital because that's all I think it does.
That's what I was going to say. He's a new age. I mean, not like... new age, but like he's like new wave.
Well, he's I think the last thing we gotta talk about is like he's this movie I think is solidified. He is when I think of like who's gonna be like this generation's Scorsese, Spielberg. I'm like it's like Nolan, Villeneuve, Iñárritu. It's like those are the guys.
Yeah.
And Villeneuve is certainly there. Like
definitely.
He is. This guy is the shit right now.
Yeah, no.
Every year he's got some.
Every year he works like crazy. Like he's really pumping stuff out like consistently. I think they said they shot for 96 days for this Blade Runner film, which is like, that's exhausting.
That's exhausting. And also I'm like, how wasn't it more? Because it was 2 hours and 45 minutes. I'm like, what did you cut?
Right. That would be interesting.
Oh,
I can't wait for the director's cut and the final cut.
I don't think there will. I think he was like, there's no other cuts.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, like, what? The studio's not going to be like, change it.
4 hours.
They made this film for film fans.
I mean, like, honestly,
I can't believe you spent so much money.
I know, yeah. You could probably cut 20 minutes out. Do you think so? Maybe there's
That's
some
a good
moments.
Question. What would you cut?
I mean, there's some moments like the orphanage that go on a little slow.
Oh yeah.
They're just they're long.
You could get rid of the stuff with the pages torn out at the orphanage.
That was a little confusing.
Mm-hmm.
And like it was cool when I was watching it, but I'm like, yeah, did that relate overall? And also like, there's a moment where I think he has to, I don't know. There's a lot of great stuff for film fans. I think this movie, if you're a fan of Blade Runner and just film, you're gonna love it. If you're like a casual goer, and you might even see Blade Runner, you're not gonna like it. Even though it looks amazing, I don't think you're gonna like it. And that's kind of how it is for Blade Runner.
I think that you're gonna like it more than the original Blade Runner if you're just a casual film watcher.
You have to seen it.
But you have to have seen it, which means that you're probably not going to see the second one because you probably didn't like the first one.
Which is like, why did they give him this much money?
This
movie's so...
People were like...
amazing it happened.
Yeah, people were like, it's bombing. And I was like, it's Blade Runner. Of course it's bombing. Like, Blade Runner is difficult. It's like, it's difficult subject matter. Like,
I don't know how... Oh, man, it's going to bomb. I just hope that doesn't affect the people who worked on it.
I know. And it's not going to affect Denis because, like... I think it won't affect him because it's a franchise movie.
And also, this just sorry, but to put this in perspective, like, it might bomb, but if it gets nominated, people are seeing it again,
Right.
And more money.
Yeah. Hey man, if it bombs but gets the noms.
That's right. Let's end it right there. That's Tyler Bonner. I'm Ryan Nilsen. Thanks for listening.